Allah is my heart's speech, your mercy is what I beseech. Keep in my heart your remembrance, and in your deen allow me to advance. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test. Help me in my quest, permit me to pass the ultimate test.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala nabiyyihi wa mustafah Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah wa ba'd. Welcome to a new edition of Ask Huda. Inshallah, in this halqa, in this episode, we'll be answering some of the pending questions on the Facebook page. By the way, our Facebook page is www.facebook.com/msalahofficial. The first question we have here is from brother Abu Sulaiman from the USA. He says, please explain the aqiqah process for my baby boy and what should be the age, the size of the sheep. Barakallahu feek wa baraka feekum. May Allah bless you and congratulations for having a new child. بورك في الموهوب وشكرت الواهب وبلغ أشده ورزقت بره. This is a dua which we should invoke whenever somebody receives a child, a baby boy or a girl. Al-aqiqah, which the brother inquired about, is sunnatun mu'akkada, an emphatic sunnah. An emphatic sunnah because there is one hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, كل غلام مرتهن بعقيقته. This hadith is narrated by Samura ibn Jundub, may Allah be pleased with him. He said, كل غلام مرتهن بعقيقته تذبح عنه يوم سابعه ويحلق ويتصدق بوزن شعره فضة أو ما يعادلها ويسمى. There is a group of instructions in this hadith. Every newborn is mortgaged to his aqiqah. So we should offer the aqiqah, hoping that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the child healthy, will make him intelligent, will make him righteous, and so on. That is the meaning of murtahanun bi'aqiqati. It is one of the means of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for receiving such child. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in this hadith, number one, that al-dhabh or slaughtering the aqiqah is recommended to be on the 7th day of the birth of the child, whether it's he or she. And kul mawlud covers both boys and or girls. And also the Prophet ﷺ prescribed on the 7th, يُحْلَقُ وَيُتَصَدَّقُ بِوَزْنِ شَعْرِهِ فِضَّةً وَيُسَمَّى, to shave the head of the baby boy and to weigh the hair, which would be very light, of course, and to give a sadaqah equivalent to its weight of silver. So if it is 1 gram, 2 grams, you see how much 1 gram of silver will be, and you give this in a charity on behalf of the child. There is a difference of opinions pertaining the baby girl, whether we should also shave the head of the baby girl or not. Then there is another instruction in the hadith which is وَيُسَمَّى, and to give him the name on that day. That is the official time of giving the name, but obviously you can name the baby before that or after that. And the aqiqah itself is a sunnah, it is emphatic sunnah as I mentioned. While the hadith and the command appears as a wajib, but there is another hadith that Al-Imam Malik narrated in his Muwatta, in which he said that the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ وُلِدَ لَهُ وَلَدٌ فَأَحَبَّ أَنْ يُنْسِكَ عَنْ وَلَدِهِ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. Whoever receives a child and he would like to give the nusuk or the aqiqah, let him do so. So the mandate in the earlier hadith now has been diverted from the wajib into the recommendation. So it is an emphatic sunnah, not a wajib, by joining the two hadith together. As far as the difference between the baby boy and the baby girl with regards to the number of heads or animal, Aisha radiyallahu anha narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam أمرهم أن يعق عن الغلام شاتان مكافئتان وعن الجارية شاة, to slaughter or to offer 2 sheep on behalf of the child and 1 for the girl. Also the sunnah, as is stated in the hadith, to do the slaughtering process on the 7th day of the birth. If the person wasn't able for a reason or another, then he can postpone it to the 14th, otherwise to the 21st day, otherwise to the 28th. Then afterward, it doesn't matter any day or time. And also the scholars said it is also recommended for a person, if his parents didn't go to do aqiqah on his behalf when he was a child, he may do it on behalf of himself as he grows up. But in fact, the aqiqah is due on the father or the person who is in charge for raising and upbringing the child. He is responsible for this. Also, some people require that the person should see the animal while it's being slaughtered. This is not true. This is not necessarily true. So he can do it by proxy. He can ask somebody to do it in his state. That's permissible. There is some also myth pertaining that the aqiqah must be cooked entirely without breaking the bones. That's not also true. It is permissible to break the bones or to cut the meat to make it into slices, and the aqiqah or the animal of the aqiqah would be distributed and handled the same way we handle the udhiyah. Al-udhiyah, 1/3 we may keep it for ourselves and we distribute 1/3 amongst our relatives, and 1/3 that is the share of the fuqara or the poor. Same way we do with the aqiqah. While it is better in the case of the aqiqah to cook the meat and to feed people. Also the same requirements in the case of the udhiyah pertaining the animal which to be slaughtered apply here as well. For instance, in the case of the sheep or the lamb, it shouldn't be less than 6 months old. In the case of the goat, at least 1 year old. In the case of a cow or a buffalo, 2 years old at least, and in the case of the camel, 5 years old. And these are the requirements of the udhiyah, the conditions of the animal which must meet in order to be valid to be slaughtered for the udhiyah. Applies here also in the case of aqiqah. We call to the animal for a camel or a buffalo or a cow, musinna. In the case of the camel, at least 5 years. In the case of the cow or the buffalo, at least 2 years. In the case of the goat, at least 1 year. While the lamb, the sheep, male or female, at least 6 months old. Also, the animal must be intact, must be healthy, must not have any of the faults which will decrease its value or prices. An animal which is sick or weak, no, it is not valid. When you offer a qurbani, you must choose something that you like for yourself, because you're offering this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Provided, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهُ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. Allah is not going to taste its meat or flesh. Rather, it is a taqwa which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to receive from you. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Ma'idah, إِنَّمَا تَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. It is only that Allah accepts from al-muttaqeen, or the righteous ones. The animal shouldn't be, whatever animal we slaughter for the aqiqah or the udhiyah, shouldn't be limping, shouldn't be with torn ear or nose, shouldn't be blind or even one eye blind. Yani, it choose an animal which is a healthy animal to be accepted. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept. If the person, of course, doesn't have the means to offer the aqiqah, then maybe some other time, whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him. As I said in the beginning, al-aqiqah is an emphatic sunnah, not a mandatory thing, according to the view of the vast majority of the scholars, and in the light of the hadith which I quoted earlier. The second question we have from Sister Asma Abdurrahim. She says, I'm a seeker of knowledge and spend many hours reading Quran. For some reason, I don't feel like my iman has increased. What is the problem and what can I do to increase it? In fact, al-Iman increases and decreases. And al-Iman increases via the following means. بِالطَّاعَةِ, due to doing good righteous deeds. So reading the Quran is an obedience. But if the person is reading the Quran without an attentive heart, it will be just physical reading without them receiving the spiritual benefit of the Quran. So you have to reflect upon what you're reading, understand the meaning of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, have a state of khushu'. That applies also to the salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning of Surah Al-Mu'minun admired the believers by saying, قَدِ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, successful indeed are the believers. Their very first quality was not that they pray, no, because the believers in general, they all pray, right? Rather it was الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ, those who tranquil and have khushu' and serenity in their prayer. They reflect upon their prayer. They ponder what they are reading or what they are reciting or what the Imam is reciting upon them if they are praying as ma'mumeen. And based on this amount of khushu', it will be in proportion with the acceptance of the salah. So if the person had 50% khushu', only 50% of his salah will be accepted. So the physical part of the prayer is necessary, but it is not the only thing for the prayer to be accepted. Reading is also required and highly recommended, but reading itself isn't sufficient. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, criticizing the behavior of the disbelievers, why won't they ponder the Quran? Think about the Quran. Or do they have locks over their hearts that prevent them from perceiving and understanding the Quran? And also said in another ayah, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. Why won't they ponder the meaning of the Quran? Reflect upon the Quran. In Surah Al-Ra'd, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُمْ بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. This is another mean of increasing the iman, which is the dhikr, the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that has several levels. For instance, in the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the believers who do find rest in the remembrance of Allah, their hearts find rest in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verily, the hearts do find rest and tranquility in the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. So if somebody is doing the dhikr while he is not attentive, he is saying astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah while he is watching a movie, then this istighfar is in vain. He's saying astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, oh Allah forgive me my sins, while he is smoking or while he is doing something haram. So this istighfar is in vain. As dhikr, the best form of dhikr is when the heart and the tongue are working together. When you say subhanallah and you really mean it. So you say it by the tongue and you are attentive to its meaning. You say it and you know what it means and you mean what you're saying. Okay? So reading the Quran likewise. The person is required to have a state of khushu'. There are people who study religious knowledge and they graduate and they get a degree. But these people are deviants because they were not studying the deen for the deen. They were not doing this for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As you know, in the hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam warned us against doing any ibadah for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the three people who will be sent to fire first, a alim, a religious scholar who studied the deen and taught it to be admired and praised by people. So you have to prepare an intention and formulate an ikhlas before studying and before reading Quran. And think about that meaning. Every letter that you read, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you for it 10 good deeds at least. Knowing that and imagining, not imagining because it's not a fact, rather it is a fact. When you read the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is talking to you. Allah is addressing you. Perhaps also studying the tafsir of the Quran would make you more attentive and comprehend the verses and the surah which you are reading, and that will bring khushu' to your heart greater, and definitely that should bring a ziyada or an increase to one's iman. Barakallahu fikum. Sister Sarah from Iraq, her question is, if a woman received a cash mahr, dowry, that puts in her income about the zakat, is it zakatable? Okay, she means that she receives a dowry or a mahr, whether the dowry itself is zakatable or in addition to other income that she has or saving or investment, the total sum is zakatable. And zakatable because it reaches the threshold of the money which you should pay zakah on it. If you maintain it above this level or above for one complete lunar year. And the zakah in this case will be due on one's wealth whenever it reaches 85 grams of gold or 595 grams of silver, or what is equivalent to that in cash, investment, stocks, or whatever. So if you possess this amount and you maintain it for one complete year or more, then definitely it is zakatable. Whether it's mahr, dowry, a gift, or the money of the orphans, or money that you're saving for your wedding, or money that you're saving to perform Hajj. As long as you possess money and it is yours, and you maintain it for one lunar year, then you should pay zakah on this money. It will be due on you, not on the husband, of course, on the person who possesses that money. Brother Muhammad Rizwan, and obviously it's written with the letter Z, but in Arabic it means Ridwan. And Ridwan is the name of the God of Al-Jannah. And it is best to pronounce it as Ridwan, not Rizwan. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the word Ridwan as the pleasure. There will be the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be upon them. His question in any case, Brother Muhammad Ridwan, as humans we naturally have self-desire. True. As Muslims, our action should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also true. So can we perform any action with the intention of fulfilling self-desire only? This is the typical case for average people, for non-Muslims and for Muslims who cannot perceive how to make hasanat and earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from or behind every deed. Let me give you an example. In one hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إن الله لا يرضى عن العبد يأكل اللقمة أو يشرب الشربة فيحمده عليها. Allah will be pleased with His servant whenever he eats anything or he drinks anything, even if it is a bite or a sip of drink, then he says Alhamdulillah. So when you come to eat and you say Bismillah, when you come to drink and you say Bismillah, then when you finish you say Alhamdulillah, you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then this habit of eating or drinking now will be perceived as a ibadah. Yes, you will be rewarded for it. You will be rewarded for it. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said in one hadith, وإنك لن تنفق نفقة تبتغي بها وجه الله إلا كتب لك بها أجرا. Spending money on your children, on your household, for school tuitions, school supplies, for the doctor or whatever. The believer is smart. He spends that for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I send my kids to these schools in order to learn, to be educated, meanwhile to be religiously committed, to be polite, of morals. I will be rewarded for that, definitely. And all the spending. حتى اللقمة, even the bite which you feed your wife, you can be rewarded for it. Not necessarily every person will be rewarded for it. It depends. What do you intend behind that? وَإِنَّ فِي بُضْعِ أَحَدِكُمْ أَجْرًا. Al-Buḍ' refers to the private part, which is a metaphor. If the person satisfies his sexual desire lawfully by sleeping with his spouse or her spouse, and he intends with that to satisfy his desire in halal, yes, indeed, he will be rewarded for that, and that can be treated as a ibadah. If somebody says, I don't want to, I just want to enjoy my desire, it's up to you. You don't want the reward, don't take it. Okay? But what determines whether the mere habits of eating, drinking, having sex, and traveling abroad for tourism and doing anything can be for the habits, the daily habits and routines, can be rewarded for preceding such acts with an intention. A good intention would guarantee a reward for even the things which you do it with desire, as long as we do it in a legal fashion according to the Sharia. Barakallahu fikum. The fifth question is from brother Amir Shuhaib. He says, what can we say about a Muslim who refuses to pray? Well, if he refuses to pray, then he refuses to be a Muslim. It is like that. As the Prophet ﷺ said, العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة فمن تركها فقد كفر. I mean, if there is no other reference in the Quran or in the Sunnah but this hadith, it should be sufficient. The difference between us and non-Muslims, other than Muslims, is as-salah, the namaz. So whoever abandons the prayer has indeed disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أول ما يحاسب عليه العبد يوم القيامة الصلاة. The very first question on the day of judgment will be pertaining as-salah. If the salah was done and it was done properly, then every other hisab, reckoning pertaining the a'mal, will be easy. They will take it easy. The angels will take it easy on the servant. If he was ruined, if the person did not pray regularly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Ma'un, فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Woe to those who pray, but they do not pray regularly. فخلف من بعدهم خلف أضاعوا الصلاة واتبعوا الشهوات فسوف يلقون غيا. This is in Surah Maryam as well, pertaining those who abandon their prayer by not praying on time. They will end up in fire in a valley which is known as Ghay or whatever. So this is a set punishment for those who do not pray on regular basis. Then what about a person who says, I'm not going to pray, I don't want to pray, and I will not pray? Then he chooses not to become a Muslim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Insan, إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. We have showed mankind as-sabil, the path. This is the good and this is the bad. And it is your choice. It is your choice to be a Muslim. It is your choice to be a kafir, wal-'iyadu billah. It is your choice to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hope to be rewarded for it. And it is your choice also not to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you should bear the consequences. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us what's best. We'll take a short break. And inshallah, we'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Should we perform wudu after eating mutton meat, after eating sheep meat? And the Prophet said, if you wish, it's not a must. And then he asked him again, he said, okay, do we have to perform wudu after eating camel's meat? And the Prophet said, yes. Brother Muhammad's second question from Spain was about writing fictional stories for children. Is it permissible or not? For children, inshallah, it is permissible, because as long as the idea is good and the context is good and it's bringing up their morality, their behavior, their conduct, and you're trying and focusing to make them better people, I believe inshallah this is permissible. He was asking about the ruling on banks, and I believe that he is asking about the banks in Nigeria. Is it halal to work for them or not? The majority of banks worldwide that do not apply the Islamic financing and transactions, it is forbidden for you to work in them because they deal in interest, in riba. Any bank, anywhere in the world, you just go there and tell them, I need 100,000 euros. They say, this is 100,000 euros. You have to pay 7%, 8%, 12%, depending on that. And this is completely forbidden. This is riba.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى لا سيما المصطفى صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Brothers and sisters, welcome back. The question we have in this segment is from Sister Halimatu Sadiya. Her question is, why are we told that the major reasons for different schools of thoughts or fiqh is that the information that was available to one imam was not available to another? And if that is the case, why don't the scholars today hold a congress and synchronize all of the correct evidences and create one madhab? Very interesting suggestion and very valid question. But before that, I would like to discuss with you the reasons behind the different opinions of fiqh and the different schools of thoughts when it comes to the fiqh point of view. And by the way, it's not only limited to the four major famous schools of thoughts, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, wa Shafi'i, wa Malik, wa Ahmad ibn Hanbal. No, it is beyond that, but these are the most famous schools of fiqh, of course. The differences due to the text which is provided could happen simply because of the following reasons. Maybe one of the scholars or the founders of schools of fiqh or even one of the companions have heard or have available a reference which he knows that it is evident, it is sound and profound, and others did not have it. It happens. Imagine that the Prophet ﷺ during the farewell speech was given khutbatul wada' and there was 120,000 audience or pilgrims, and even more, maybe 124 or so. Some were very close to the Prophet ﷺ and observed every action and every nusuk he did, and some heard it from others and some did not get to hear at all. And that's why An-Nasa'i narrated in his Sunan an incident when Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, this is a companion who's so attached to the Prophet ﷺ. And Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah relied on his view in most of his views and so on. So he used to carry his shoes, his miswak, and he would go with him everywhere. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was a mount of knowledge. There was a mas'ala after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. A woman who got married, but before consummating the marriage, the husband died. And meanwhile, they did not have agree to a fard, which is to the dowry, like how much is it? So what would she get from this man? There is no dowry, the dowry was not appointed, and they died before consummating the marriage. So what would she get after this guy passed away? He made ijtihad, and he said she gets a dowry similar to a woman in her condition, her cousin, or a woman of her age, beauty, and position. When she got married recently, how much dowry did she collect? A man similar to him, when he got married, how much dowry did he pay? So she will be given a similar dowry. Not only that, he says she must observe the iddah, 4 months and 10 days. Number 3, she will have a share in the inheritance, which is if he did not have any other heirs, or he has, it will be determined according to her position in amongst the ears. Okay, so she will have a share in the inheritance. She would have to observe the iddah, and also she will get from his inheritance, before the inheritance will be divided, a dowry similar to the dowry of any woman in her age, condition, beauty, and so on. So he made this ijtihad. When he did so, a companion by the name Ma'qil ibn Yasar, may Allah be pleased with him, got up and said, I bear witness that I have seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam judging a similar case with the same ruling. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was so delighted, and nothing made him happier than this news, that his judgment coincided the ruling of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the catch in this story, that Abdullah ibn Mas'ud never heard about the Prophet's ruling in a similar case. Why? Because he was not there 24/7. He was there most of the time, but maybe during this time he was not there. So those who did not attend the incident and made ijtihad different, this is one of the reasons. al-Mu'mineen Aisha radiyallahu anha said, whoever says that the Prophet have ever urinated while standing is a liar. While another companion, Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, said, yes, we were once out and the Prophet ﷺ went and he urinated while standing. So was Hudayfa lying? No. Can any person say that whoever says the Prophet have done this while standing is a liar? In fact, she judged according to what she have seen at home and whenever she was with him, but she was not with him whenever he travels, whenever he's abroad. So a person who has seen a similar incident, we would rely on his statement, but the fuqaha would compromise and would say that the person would do this with conditions, make sure that his clothes will not be soiled with urine. So the fuqaha will make ijtihad, they will exert the effort in order to come up with the proper answer with the ruling. That's why they differ. There is, for instance, an incident where some of the fuqaha received the same hadith where others have received it. But when he investigated the chain of the narrators and the authenticity of the hadith, he, according to his judgment, the hadith is weak, while others have found the hadith is highly profound. So that may lead to two different opinions. For instance, the hadith which says, لا نكاح إلا بولي وشاهدي عدل. There is no valid marriage, or the marriage will not be valid unless the wali, the guardian, approves it and it is witnessed by at least two just witnesses. Shahiday adl. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa in his madhab, he considered this hadith da'if, weak, and that's why he said the wali is not really a wajib. A woman may give herself in marriage if she's an adult. Al-Jumhur are of the view that any marriage, whether a woman is bikr or thayyib, first time to get married or previously married before, she cannot give herself in marriage without consent of her wali. And if she does, then the marriage will be invalid. And this is the right view because of this hadith and other hadith. So basically, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, if he were to know that this hadith is a sound hadith, not as he thought that it's a weak hadith, he would have adopted the same view. So what happened is, there are many reasons. These are some of the reasons. For instance, differences because of understanding the nusus. Because of understanding the nusus. There are some words in the Quran which are ambiguous or may carry two meanings, and the two meanings are opposite to each other. The typical example of that is the word qur'. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. That the divorced women should wait, the iddah period for them is 3 quru, plural of qur'. Al-qur' in Arabic is al-tuhr, and it is also al-hayd. So the word qur' refers to the menses, and it also refers to the purity that follows the menses. So there are two different views. Is it 3 periods, or is it 3 tahara that follows the period which will prolong the iddah for a few more days. Okay, because of that, there is a difference of opinion. There are things which cannot be sorted out, so there will be always two opinions, or maybe more than one. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, during his life, when he returned from the battle of Al-Khandaq, he said, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فلا يصلين العصر إلا في بني قريظة. Jibreel alayhi salam said, you gotta go and take care of these guys. It's a Jewish tribe who are assisting the Meccan pagans against you in their campaign against you. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam encouraged his companions not to delay by saying, whoever believes in Allah and in the last day should not pray Asr but in Bani Qurayza's neighborhood. While the companions were on the way, some took the command literal. And he said, don't you pray Asr, but there, when you reach there. So it was approaching sunset. We're going to miss the Asr, because once the sun sets, the time for Asr is out. And now it is the time for Maghrib. Some companions said, well, the Prophet ﷺ did not mean that literally. Rather, he meant to encourage us to rush to go there. So whenever they feared that the Asr time will be out, they prayed Asr before sunset. When they reached there, and the Prophet ﷺ heard the story of both, he did not object to this nor to that, which is an indication that even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, that the companions have sometimes different understanding to the same text. Sometimes in the Quranic ayat, there are different dialects. So if somebody read the ayah with this dialect, he would judge the case according to his recitation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِذَا قُمْتُمْ إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ فَاغْسِلُوا وُجُوهَكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ إِلَى الْمَرَافِقِ وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ وَأَرْجُلَكُمْ إِلَى الْكَعْبَيْنِ. This is a dialect which is very famous. We all recite it this way. امسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم, with the fath or zabar over the lam. Some people in an odd recitation, they recite it وَأَرْجُلِكُمْ. That will determine whether the feet should be washed or mere wiped over, similar to wiping over the head. So these differences are there. The scholars and what you're talking about, the Congress, to synchronize all these opinions and to come up with the most sound one, they do that all the time. And that's why in this program, for instance, we say, this is what Imam Abu Hanifa said in this regard, and this is what other Imams said, and we believe the more right view in the light of the sound hadith or reference is this. So their views and opinions will be always there as references. But a true believer, upon knowing what is the more right view, he should follow it without hesitation. Well, the following question is from Brother Ahmed Fawzi from the USA. His question says, my father and other family members are buried in graves which are raised very high and marked with tombstones. What should I do? I visit my father's grave when visiting Egypt. Okay. In fact, that is not the only violation when it comes to the graveyard. Many violations. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ paid a lot of attention and put a lot of emphasis on teaching the Ummah what to do in this regard. But subhanAllah, for some reason, people still do entirely the opposite. For instance, in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, when he ordered Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, لا تدع تمثالا إلا طمسته ولا قبرا مشرفا إلا سويته. This hadith is collected by Imam Muslim. He said, Ya Ali, don't you let any statue, but طمسته, disfigure it. Nowadays, we erect statues and we make idols for politicians, singers, and writers or whatever in the big squares. We make statues everywhere. And this is absolutely prohibited. Can anyone say, well, the Prophet ﷺ did not mean the statues which we do nowadays? No, he meant that. Do not let any statue but disfigure it. And also he said, وَلَا قَبْرًا مُشْرِفًا إِلَّا سَوَّيْتَ. And do not leave any erected grave, يعني a grave which is very high, but you should level it. The graveyard and the cemetery, the grave may be elevated just a handspan in order to declare that somebody is buried here. Unfortunately, I've seen the graveyards in America. They look like the graveyard according to the Sunnah, more than in many countries, in Egypt for instance. So now, if the person have the choice to do something like this in the future, to build a graveyard, they should follow the Sunnah. But what to do now? You do not have an access to demolish the grave, nor are we asking you to do so. Would that stop you from visiting the graveyard and praying for your father or for your late uncle or your family members? No, that should not affect your visit to the graveyard. But we're stating the fact that we should not build tombs and buildings over the grave so that it will be like a house or a room or a tomb. Rather, the graves, if you go to Al-Madinah to perform ziyarah and pray in the Prophet Masjid, you get to see maqabir al-Baqi'. This is the maqabir where the greatest people after the Prophet ﷺ have been buried. They are all leveled. It will be sufficient to put a marker or something to indicate this is a grave of so and so or such and such. Barakallahu fikum. Sister Amna from Pakistan. She says, is wearing an amulet a means of protection against jinn and the evil eye? If not, what can someone do if he's being affected by the jinn or the evil eye? This is of course like ABC in Islam. We all know that the best means of seeking protection against the shaitan, the evil eye and the sorcery is seeking refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala against all of that. Either by saying أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, for instance, seeking refuge against a shaitan in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his help, or reciting the 3 last chapters of the Quran, which are known as Al-Mu'awwidhat, and that's it. As far as wearing this amulet and hanging it from the neck, from the wrist, or keeping it in one's clothes, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in this regard, "Man allaqa faqad ashrak." Whoever hangs or wears anything as means of amulet or ta'weed or talisman has committed shirk. Because look at it this way, those who wear this rubber wrist or bracelet, they say because it keeps balance, it keeps me alert, it protects me against the evil eye, it brings a good luck. Can you imagine that human beings, grown-up human beings, professional, and one of whom would believe that this piece of rubber will protect him against a harm, will bring him any good, will do him any good? This is really bad. A person shouldn't be that low in his understanding. Even a non-Muslim, how could you imagine, like similar to that when people say touch wood to do what? To protect you against the evil eye. Would touching all the wood in the world protect you against any harm? No. That's basically an indication of lack of aqeedah and misunderstanding of our belief. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to his cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, and he was approximately 13 years old. He said, وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأُمَّةَ لَوْ اجْتَمَعَتْ عَلَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعُوكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَن يَنْفَعُوكَ إِلَّا بِشَيْءٍ قَدْ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ لَكَ وَلَوْ اجْتَمَعُوا عَلَىٰ أَن يَضُرُّوكَ بِشَيْءٍ لَن يَضُرُّوكَ إِلَّا بِشَيْءٍ قَدْ كَتَبَهُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكَ. We have to instill these meanings and this firm belief in our hearts and in the hearts of our family members, our children. You have to understand that if all mankind got together to benefit you with anything, they will not be able to benefit you except with something that Allah has ordained for you. And if all the dunya gather together to harm you with anything, they will not be able to harm you except with something that Allah has preordained for you. رفعت الأقلام وجفت الصحف. recite Ayat al-Kursi, recite al-Mu'awwidhat, as we mentioned before, especially before going to sleep. You summon your hands, you recite the last 3 chapters of the Quran, then you blow in your palms and you wipe over your face and your head and your body. You do that 3 times. These are the means of protection, seeking protection and help in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not from a piece of rubber or an amulet or some writings which you do not know their meaning. That doesn't make any sense. Now, Brother Ahmed from Nigeria, that is the 10th question we have today. His question is, I am interested in marrying a Christian girl, and she's interested in accepting Islam, but she's afraid her parents will not accept her if she does. What should I do? I wish we can distinguish between marriage and accepting Islam, because if she's interested in accepting Islam and she's convinced, she's not going to ask the question that my parents or whoever, because the person who recognizes his Creator and he knows that he has those rights upon him to worship him alone because he created him and he provides for him and so on, will not consider any other factor. If this woman is sincere, or this girl is sincere in accepting Islam, then she is eligible for our support. And nothing should stop her from accepting Islam. If she accepts Islam and you guys get married, you will be required to support her, and she will be required also to be dutiful to her parents, not to sever her relations with them, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِن جَاهَدَكَ عَلَىٰ أَن تُشْرِكَ بِي مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ فَلَا تُطِعْهُمَا يَتْ وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا. You still give them a good company in the dunya. You would not comply with their instructions of disbelief or disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they still have rights upon you. It is hard to make the decision nowadays, but if she is sincere in accepting Islam and she recognizes the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you need to encourage her to take the decision, even if you guys do not get married. That's why I said we have to separate between the 2 cases. As far as marriage, we have to understand that if this girl is a chaste woman and she is a Christian, as you mentioned, that would not stop you from marrying her, because it is legitimate, it is halal. Yet, I highly discourage such marriage because of the future of the children. In case that the father dies or if they get divorced, the bill will be very high. The cost will be very expensive. You're going to lose your children because you never know. And that's why I say, if she is sincere in accepting Islam, let her accept Islam first, then you guys should support her by every possible mean. By that we come to the end of this edition of Ask Huda. And until next time, I leave you in the care of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Allah is my heart's speech. Your mercy is what I beseech. Keeping my heart